Hello there, it's time to dig into the gameplay trailer from DICE that was shown yesterday at the Xbox Bethesda event. Or it depends whether or not I managed to get the video together today. Otherwise today is tomorrow and yesterday is no longer yesterday and, well, in this video I'm going to dig into the different details that came up in the gameplay trailer. A little bit of everything. So movement, HUD, flags, specialists, weapons, vehicles and the general idea of the trailer, which kinda wasn't actually to show the gameplay itself, but I'll get back to that at the end. Before we get started, thank you so much for watching. I'm Zach, a Battlefield veteran since 1942. Yeah, I guess I'm that old. Anyhow, if you like this video, please consider hitting that hot red button to subscribe and give a thumbs up. If this wasn't your cup of tea though, feel free to hammer the thumbs down or hit me a comment. I do stream Battlefield on Twitch, poking me live is always interesting. Right, so let's start with the HUD, because in this gameplay trailer it actually gives most of the actual information. If you have played any Battlefield game before, you will recognize a lot of the elements. Noticeable is that most information has been moved to the bottom of the screen. Given the slight tilt, I guess it's supposed to feel a little bit like information displayed on your glasses or on a visor. The actual style itself isn't too far from previous Battlefield games, but it actually reminds me a little bit about the Star Wars Republic Commander game from 2005, if you remember. Down to the left is the map, all sectors, the overall score, in Conquest at least, some funky mobile symbol and something else that I can't really figure out for sure. It kind of looks like a symbol for a large or something like that. Information about your squad is also there, though I would expect the finished version to have something to distinguish your avatar from your mates. The minimap is a bit revamped. Rather than having a handful of objectives, there are a handful of sectors. Each sector has a couple of objectives. The stadium looks to have at least 3, for example. Roughly, that could mean that the map is about at least double the size compared to Battlefield 5. So what is the difference then? Well, the minimap both shows the symbols at the bottom, but the actual color of the sector inside the minimap is also different to reflect which team has the control over the sector or if it's contested. The HUD also shows the health of the squad mates. Together with a stim pistol on Falk, that could open up for squad play with a defensive healer, more comparable with games such as Overwatch. My guess though, based on what has been shown of the ammo for the stim pistol, is that rate of fire is probably too slow, but the idea is a little bit tickling though. Moving over to the right side. While the left side of the HUD seems to be constant, the right side changes when you go by foot or vehicle. Apart from the ammo information and more, it also prints what weapon you equip, what vehicle you are driving or what specialist you are using. I'm not sure if that information is going to stick for the finished product. Personally, I would consider it unnecessarily and actually annoying, but for the gameplay trailer it's highly interesting. We only see 3 of the 4 introduced specialists, but we also see 2 more specialists that are not yet introduced, and we can guess some of their traits. More about that later. Enough of the more general HUD talk, let's move on to the plus system. The system that allows you to change your loadout in-game. That is something I've been longing for quite some time. The solution is actually quite nice as well. It is very similar to the solution presented almost 15 years ago in Crysis, but remade as a plus, which makes it really easy to handle on consoles as well. As you can see in the trailer, the number of options presented are quite limited. I'm curious about if this means that you can select a few options to bring to the battlefield, or if the options simply are limited. Of course, it could be because it's a pre-alpha as well, but looking at the plus system overall, it can't contain too many options. You can't have 10 different grips, it simply doesn't scale. Maybe you can choose 2 to 3 different grips, sights, etc. to bring to the battlefield, but the total number of variations can be many more. Looking at the trailer, the plus above the selected weapon seems to indicate that there is a plus system available. Makes sense. That also means that both the primary and secondary weapons can have plus systems, so for the first time in a Battlefield game you can customize the handguns as well. Nice! I would also assume that it also means that the traits of a gun is affected by the different grips etc, rather than experience-based tree in Battlefield 5. I have no doubt that the plus system unlocks based on the experience level, but changing the traits of a rifle or a gun based on different attachments makes way more sense than a tech tree. The question for me is mostly whether or not DICE is going to keep this a little bit Battlefield simple or go Warzone crazy with lots and lots of options. The third weapon on the HUD seems to be the Specialist Active Ability. In the trailer we get to see a couple of different variations. Mackay is the most common, which interestingly is spelled differently than the Origin Battlefield 2042 page. More interestingly, however, looking at the grapple hook, the ammo is unlimited. Instead there is a cooldown shown both in the reticle and in the HUD to the right. I wonder how this affects the customization of the reticle, as I usually like to change color, size and shape if I can. So Mackay has already been introduced, we know his stuff. The grapple hook is shown. I think they can do more in the moment to make it feel more, well, just generally feel more. You can't shoot while grappling, or that is at least my conclusion from the game, so you might as well add some nice animation. Mackay is all news. What about the other specialists? Falk is introduced in the trailer, showing both how she protects her eyes in the storm, potentially limited to hipfire, and later the steam pistol is shown. The steam pistol is a pistol that can be used both to harm enemies and to heal friendlies. Much like the gun of Ana in Overwatch, it is supposedly also capable of reviving friendlies, which is super cool. The ammo seems to be a bit limited though, and my guess is that rate of fire is limited as well. Still, if done right, I think it's an awesome feature. Worth noting though is that we can see in the trailer that it's at least possible for squad members to revive, much like late Battlefield games, even if not playing as Falk. When other players than Falk revive, the revived player will not come back with full health, so only Falk can revive players with full health. This was confirmed in the briefing. Not much more to say about Falk from the trailer, except that her gloves is kind of kinky. Casper is also briefly introduced in the trailer for about 2 seconds, no abilities shown, but Casper can use 2 primary weapons. This was confirmed in the briefing as well. So for instance, he can combine the sniper rifle together with an assault rifle, or a sniper rifle and a submachine gun, or a submachine gun and assault rifle, and so on and so forth, which is actually super cool and super strong. Boris is not introduced at all, at least not first person, but we get 2 other specialists instead. We followed Delta a couple of times, and my guess is that symbol is a riot shield. That would mean that it is Delta that we see walking with the shield to the left. Seems reasonable that the shield has infinite ammo, but much like the grappling hook, my guess is that it has a cooldown. Or at least I think that it should for a decent balance. The final specialist shown is Sundance. Again, my guess about the symbol shown, this is the portable shield or wall. This makes sense to me, a shield that is deployed and Sundance can bring a maximum of 2. Well, it's a theory at least, isn't it? One thing that I thought about in the trailer is the bat suit instead of the parachute. In the trailer the bat suit is shown on Sundance, but as we can see no visible cooldowns are used. So this could be a secondary passive trait, replacing the parachute with a batsuit, or it could be that any player has that possibility. While a batsuit is cooler any day of the week, I can certainly see moments when a parachute is the better option. Finally, the 2 last spots are for different accessories, like RPG, nades and C4. You get to see some C4 action with the C4 bike. Cool stuff and very DICE-ish is the display on the trigger stating maximum range, current distance and so on. Wonder if any map is big enough to be out of range. A bit disappointing that current distance doesn't seem to work, but hopefully that's just because pre-alpha. There is also something else that I can't really figure out. Maybe it's a Men in Black memory stick. If you know, write in the comments below. Most kinds of weapons were shown. I think there was 1 LMG and I think it has a tripod or something. So probably going Rambo by hip-firing LMG and MMG is not going to be effective in this game either. Sorry about that, Danny. Looking at the vehicles, I actually don't think that the trailer shows that many, at least not in first person. It shows the Abrams tank, the Apache chopper, MV-38 Condor, which I think is a modern made-up version of an Osprey, maybe, and a LATV. Now the Abrams is actually quite old tank, but in Battlefield it's called M1A3, and if I recall correctly, current versions are M1A1 and M1A2. The LATV is called LATV4, which I think again is a future version, which gives DICE a lot of wiggle room for their own interpretations to modernize it or gamify it as they see fit. Well, they could of course do that anyway, but anyone wanting realism, which I don't think they will get from this game anyway, seriously lack argument. Something new for Battlefield 2042 is how you get vehicles, or at least tanks. They are dropped on request, which I think the green phone may be used for. We get to see a couple of the drops in the trailer, and to be honest they look awesome. Much better than in some movies. My worry having such a system is whether or not vehicles are customizable, which I really liked in Battlefield 5, and maybe more importantly, will anyone be able to steal my tank? If so, I really want friendly fire again. And yeah, the 120mm smooth bore is, it's basically armor-piercing rounds. Given the huge maps, vehicles will be important for rapid movement. We see loads of tanks, choppers, LATVs, etc. At one moment we see as much as 5 tanks from the same team in one view. So if you don't like vehicles, well, this is probably not the game for you. Even at this early stage there are some cool physics, like how the Abrams move the wheels a bit over the top. Such a heavy tank should just flatten the car without noticing too much, but still it's very cool to see, and who cares about reality anyway? One thing that caused lots of mixed feelings in Battlefield 5 was the animations when entering or exiting vehicles. We don't get to see anything about that in the trailer. Actually, it's omitted by the C4 bikes by doing it behind an obstacle. I think that there will be some animations, but maybe they are not done yet. Speaking of movement, the time showing actual movement is very limited, but from the little information we get, it looks like a continued evolution down the line of Battlefield 5. We get to see sliding, leaning, crouching, proning and running. And we also get to see some special features like grapple hooking, parachuting and a cool bat suit. The weather effect is quite apparent. The tornado doesn't only affect the entire area with winds and lights, it also obscures the HUD and seemingly forces hipfire. Later there is someone running normally with the sidearms, so I'm not so sure about that. Obviously, also it greatly impacts the ability to move for both vehicles and soldiers. So what about the overall vibe of the game, and what's up with the lack of longer gameplay footage? I very much believe that the gameplay builds on previous games, evolving it further. While it's a modern era, which of course affects the gunplay, which we actually can see from the 2 rounds that are fired in the trailer, the movement itself is probably not going to be that much different from previous games. I also imagine that the specific animations maybe needs further tinkering in details, and so after all it's only pre-alpha. So instead the trailer very much focuses around the cool new stuff that is unlike previous Battlefield games, some unlike any other game. The trailer showcases the huge maps, the massive scale of weather effects and lots of smoke in different variations. It shows the grapple hook, stim pistol, tank drop, glide wire, batsuit and so on. In short, lots of cool stuff that the new Frostbite engine gives and more. A few things that I hoped for though, that we didn't get apart from gameplay, are destruction and hair effects. With destruction I'm thinking of blowing up parts of the arena or a skyscraper, or at least something other than an actual vehicle. About the hair thingy, there was a demo half a year ago about that from the Frostbite engine, but there isn't anything like that going on, or we haven't seen it so far, I don't think so. So far, I mean, all skins are obviously looking good, but they're not exceptional in my mind. I have to admit that we are a bit spoiled though. Battlefield 2042 makes the new Far Cry look old already. Anyway, I don't blame DICE for a trailer like this. I think that it was super cool. I am still pumped about the game. I see it more as a reminder of how much there still may be to perfect before we get the complete game, but also that DICE made the most to create hype out of the trailer shown at Xbox and Bethesda event. Regardless of being a Battlefield fan or not, the gameplay trailer was 100% intensity all the way.